If you drive on American highways even once this week, you need to hear this before you grab your keys. Starting tomorrow, drivers across the United States are already being targeted under updated highway enforcement rules that many people still have no idea exist. And the scary part is not that reckless drivers are getting caught. It is that regular people, careful people, experienced people, drivers who have never had a serious ticket in their lives are suddenly finding themselves facing expensive fines, insurance increases, and even license consequences over habits they believed were completely normal. Some of these changes look small on paper, but the second an officer decides to enforce them, they become very real, very expensive problems. What makes these updates so dangerous is how ordinary the mistakes are. We are talking about things millions of drivers do every single day without even thinking about them anymore. Holding a phone for a second while stopped at a red light, slowing too much while merging onto a highway, parking in the same familiar spot near an intersection that you have used for years. These are not behaviors most people associate with serious enforcement action, but under the new standards now being aggressively enforced in many states, those same actions can instantly become ticketable violations. And there is almost no adjustment period happening. Officers are not treating these updates like friendly reminders. Many departments have already announced active enforcement campaigns, especially on highways and commuter routes. That means the people getting cited first are often the ones who never even heard the rules changed. So today, we are going through every major update drivers need to know right now, exactly how these rules are being enforced, who is most likely to get caught, and what simple adjustments you need to make immediately before your next drive. The first change is the one expected to catch the highest number of drivers over the next few months, and that is construction zone enforcement. Most people think they already understand construction zone laws. Slow down, watch for workers, respect the reduced speed signs. Simple enough, but the actual enforcement standard has changed in a way many drivers still do not realize. For years, a lot of construction zones only carried doubled fines when workers were physically present. Drivers were used to seeing signs that specifically mentioned workers being on site, so naturally, people assumed that if the crew had left for the day or nobody was visible, normal enforcement standards applied again. That assumption is now creating huge problems. Under the updated enforcement approach now spreading across highway systems nationwide, the moment you enter a marked construction zone, enhanced penalties can apply whether workers are visible or not. The signs themselves are enough. If orange construction signs are posted, the zone is considered active for enforcement purposes. It does not matter if it is midnight. It does not matter if the equipment is parked and silent. It does not matter if there is not a single worker in sight. And officers are being extremely strict about speed in these areas. In many places, drivers are being cited for barely exceeding the posted construction speed limit. People who are used to driving 5 or 6 miles above the limit without issue are suddenly discovering that habit can now cost them several $100s in one stop. The second rule change is causing massive confusion among older and experienced drivers because it directly contradicts habits many people were taught decades ago. Highway merging laws are now being enforced differently, and drivers who hesitate too much on entry ramps are increasingly being blamed for creating dangerous traffic conditions. For years, countless drivers believed the safest thing to do at the end of a merge ramp was slow down heavily or even nearly stop before entering traffic. People thought caution meant reducing speed and waiting until everything looked perfectly clear. But traffic safety experts now argue that behavior actually creates more danger because it disrupts highway flow and forces sudden reactions from surrounding vehicles. Under current enforcement standards in several states, drivers are expected to use the full acceleration lane properly and match highway speed before merging. If you slow dramatically at the merge point and create a hazard behind you, officers can treat that as a traffic violation. And if another vehicle crashes because you unexpectedly stopped or crawled at the merge area, liability may shift toward you for causing the dangerous condition. This is why officers have begun paying close attention to on-ramp behavior during heavy traffic periods. They are watching for drivers who panic at the merge point instead of accelerating confidently with traffic flow. The proper method now is clear. Use the ramp to build speed, signal early, identify your opening, merge smoothly while traveling close to the same speed as the vehicles already on the highway. The third update involves prescription medications, and this is one of the most serious sections in this entire discussion because millions of Americans could potentially be affected by it. Many drivers still associate impaired driving laws only with alcohol or illegal drugs, but enforcement involving prescription medication is becoming far more aggressive. Law enforcement officers now have broader authority in many jurisdictions to investigate suspected impairment tied to legally prescribed medications. That means if an officer observes driving behavior suggesting impairment, they may request chemical testing even when alcohol is not involved at all. And this includes medications many people take every day for legitimate medical conditions. Certain sleep medications, anti-anxiety drugs, opioid pain medications, muscle relaxers, and even some prescription antihistamines can potentially trigger impairment concerns depending on dosage levels and driving behavior. Now let's make something absolutely clear. Nobody should stop taking prescribed medication because of this information. Your health comes first, and medication decisions should always be made with your physician. But what drivers do need to understand is that being legally prescribed a medication does not automatically protect someone from an impaired driving charge if the medication affects their ability to operate a vehicle safely. Keeping prescription information accessible in your vehicle may also help establish that medications are legally prescribed and responsibly managed. The key point here is awareness. Many drivers genuinely do not realize their prescriptions may carry driving-related warnings until a serious situation occurs. The fourth change involves distracted driving enforcement, and this one is catching drivers completely off guard because the definition itself has expanded dramatically. Most people think distracted driving laws only apply when someone is texting or actively using a phone. That is no longer the reality in many states. Now, simply holding a phone while operating a vehicle can itself be considered a violation. The officer does not necessarily need to prove you were texting, scrolling, or making a call. Just having the phone in your hand may be enough. And yes, this includes red lights. It includes stop-and-go traffic. It can even apply in parking lots if the vehicle is still running. Drivers who casually pick up their phone at intersections because they assume the car is temporarily stopped are learning this lesson the hard way. Police departments are specifically prioritizing this behavior because distracted driving continues to contribute to thousands of crashes every year. Officers are actively looking through windshields at intersections and during traffic patrols, searching for phones in drivers' hands. Next comes a parking update that sounds minor until people realize how many familiar parking spaces suddenly fall into violation territory. Parking too close to crosswalks is now receiving stricter enforcement under updated distance standards. In many areas, drivers must now remain at least 25 feet away from marked or unmarked crosswalks near intersections. That extra few feet matters more than people think. Spots drivers have comfortably used for years may now sit inside restricted zones. The reason behind the change is visibility. Vehicles parked too close to crosswalks block sight lines for both pedestrians and approaching drivers. By increasing the clear distance around intersections, officials hope to reduce pedestrian collisions. Failure to yield enforcement has also become significantly harsher. Drivers who fail to stop for pedestrians at crosswalks are now facing much steeper penalties than before. In many jurisdictions, these violations automatically add points to driving records and may even require mandatory traffic courses. And the biggest enforcement focus is unsignaled crosswalks. A surprising number of drivers still think they only need to stop when traffic lights or crossing signals are present, but legally, pedestrians already inside or clearly entering a marked crosswalk typically have the right of way. Repeated failure to yield violations can now trigger license review proceedings in some states, meaning the consequences go far beyond a single fine. 3 violations in a relatively short period may lead to additional testing requirements or potential restrictions on driving privileges. The final major update every highway driver needs to understand involves following distance. For years, many drivers relied on rough car length estimates while driving at highway speeds. But current guidance now emphasizes a time-based system instead. Most drivers are following much closer than they realize. At highway speeds, even a brief distraction can turn a short gap into a major collision. And when rear-end crashes happen, investigators increasingly use these updated following standards when determining liability. Measuring the distance is simple. Watch the car ahead pass a fixed object and count how many seconds pass before you reach that same point. Less than 3 seconds means you are too close, and this matters legally, not just for safety. If investigators determine you are following too closely based on these standards, responsibility for a collision may automatically shift toward you regardless of what the driver ahead did. Most people on the road tomorrow morning will not know these details yet. That is exactly why so many ordinary drivers are about to get blindsided by fines and violations they never expected. Take a few minutes tonight and make the necessary adjustments. Slow down fully in construction zones. Merge confidently at highway speed. Keep your phone completely out of your hands while driving. Stay farther from crosswalks when parking. Yield carefully to pedestrians. Increase your following distance. And if you take prescription medications, talk openly with your doctor about driving safety. Small habits now carry much bigger consequences than they used to. Staying informed is no longer optional. It is one of the most valuable forms of protection a driver can have.